The words, "I need you to leave now," hit with a physical force, stealing the air from my lungs. The joyous roar of the reception hall behind them suddenly felt like a mockery. There, framed in the ornate doorway, stood my brother's new bride, Chloe, her face a mask of porcelain calm, but her eyes held a glint of cold steel. Her smile was a tight, practiced line, the kind reserved for difficult clients, or apparently for me. And behind her, my own brother, Daniel, my partner in crime since we could walk, stared fixedly at a scuff on the pristine dance floor, refusing to grant me the dignity of his gaze. "Yeah," he muttered to the floor, his voice barely audible over the pulsing music. "Maybe it's better if you just go home early." Go home early? The words tumbled out, laced with a disbelieving laugh that caught in my throat. "Daniel, look at me. I'm your sister. I spent 6 months helping you plan this entire day. I was the one who spent a whole weekend with you tasting 17 different kinds of cake until you found the perfect one. I negotiated with the florist when Chloe was ready to fire her. I held your hand this morning when you were panicking about your vows." My voice cracked, betraying the composure I was desperately trying to hold on to. Chloe's arms, already folded, tightened their grip. "And we're grateful," she said, her voice dripping a saccharine venom. "But let's be very clear. This is our day, not yours, and you've made things tense all day. Security will escort you out if needed." She delivered the threat with the calm finality of a judge passing a sentence. My hands began to tremble at my sides, but it wasn't from fear. It was a raw, burning humiliation, heating my skin from the inside out. They actually meant it. This wasn't a twisted joke. They were staging a coup at the castle gates, and I was the one being exiled. I looked past Chloe, my eyes pleading with the boy who used to build pillow forts with me. "You're kicking me out of your wedding?" I asked, my voice so quiet it was almost swallowed by the celebration behind them. "It's for the best," Chloe interjected, not letting him speak. "You've been negative all day, criticizing the champagne, making comments about the seating chart. You couldn't just be happy for us." The accusations were like arrows, each one a distortion of the truth. I'd mentioned the champagne was warm, a simple observation. I'd questioned why our elderly Aunt Marie was seated next to the deafening speakers. But in her narrative, it was all sabotage. Finally, Daniel lifted his head. His eyes, the same shade of hazel as mine, met mine for a fleeting, agonizing second. There was no apology there, only a weary plea for this scene to end. "Please," he said, his voice hollow, "just go." And with those 2 words, the bond we'd shared for a lifetime shattered on the polished floor between us. I turned, the vibrant music fading into a dull throb, a soundtrack to my very public, very personal dissolution. They didn't know that every vendor, the florist, the caterer, the band, the photographer, had one thing in common: my name on their contracts. Not Daniel's, not Chloe's, mine. Emma Carter, the dependable one. Hi. I'm Emma. I'm 30 years old, and for most of my life, I've been the family's anchor. The problem with being an anchor is that you're only noticed when you fail to hold the ship steady. Otherwise, you're just a heavy, forgotten piece of metal at the bottom of the sea. A tool, a wallet, a resource to be utilized, not a person to be cherished. For years, my family treated me that way. A desperate text, "Need tuition money this semester," would arrive without a hello. A tearful call, "My rent is overdue," would end without a thank you. A last-minute demand, "It's Mom's birthday tomorrow, you'll handle the gift and reservations, right?" was just assumed. I thought love was a currency measured in giving. I didn't realize it was a two-way street that required respect, a currency my family had declared bankruptcy on long ago. 6 months before this disaster, Daniel called me, his voice brimming with a boyish excitement I hadn't heard in years. "Em, I did it. I proposed to Chloe. She said yes." My heart swelled for him. "Daniel, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you. I'd always wanted him to find real joy." Then came the pivot, the subtle shift in tone I'd come to recognize. "So we wanted to ask you something," he said, his voice dipping into a carefully casual register. "You're more established, better off financially. Could you maybe help us with the wedding budget, just to get us started?" A familiar weight settled in my stomach. "What kind of help are we talking about, Daniel?" "Well," he began, and I could picture him running a hand through his hair, the way he always did when nervous. "Chloe's parents can't really afford much, and Mom and Dad are still tight from helping me through college. We were hoping maybe you could cover the big stuff? The venue, the catering, maybe the band? We want it to be perfect." I closed my eyes, leaning back against my kitchen counter. The silence on the line stretched. "Daniel, that's a lot. That's tens of thousands of dollars." I know," he rushed to say, his voice softening with a practiced plea. "But it's just temporary, a loan. We'll pay you back one day, I swear, every penny." It was the same promise he'd made about the loan for his first car and the one for his failed startup. The one day that never, ever came. I did the math later, the numbers cold and stark on the spreadsheet. $42,000. That was half my savings, the careful nest egg I'd built through late nights and sacrificed weekends. But he was my brother, my only sibling, the boy who shared a bedroom wall with me and whispered secrets through the dark. I silenced the screaming voice of reason and transferred the first deposit the next day. When Chloe called to thank me, her voice was syrupy sweet, yet it left a bitter aftertaste. "Emma, you're such a blessing. I mean, you don't have a husband or kids of your own to worry about, so it's nice that you can pour your energy into family, right?" Something in my chest twisted, a sharp, familiar pain, but I forced a light laugh, the sound tinny even to my own ears. Right. Over the next few months, I wasn't just helping, I was the silent, unpaid project manager. Vendor meetings, color palettes, food tastings, intricate schedules. Chloe delegated all of it to me with a breezy, "You're just so much more organized, Emma." Whenever I genuinely asked for her opinion on napkin folds or entree choices, she'd wave a dismissive hand. "You have better taste anyway. I trust you completely." It wasn't trust. It was a dismissal, a way to absolve herself of the work while retaining all the credit. But the veneer cracked completely at the engagement dinner. Under the soft glow of bistro lights, Chloe stood, glass of champagne held aloft, and addressed a room. "We're so thankful to my future sister-in-law, Emma. She's been absolutely amazing, handling all the little details because, well, let's be honest, she doesn't really have much else going on in her life." The room erupted in polite, complicit laughter. My eyes flew to Daniel. He didn't meet my gaze. He just chuckled and shook his head as if his fiancée had merely stated a charming, universal truth.
I smiled a tight, brittle smile, excused myself, and found refuge in the restroom. Locked in a stall, I didn't cry out of hurt from the insult. I'd grown a callous against those. I cried because my own brother, the one person who knew the weight of my dreams and the shape of my loneliness, had heard me be reduced to a pitiable spinster and had said nothing. The cracks became a chasm from there. When I cautiously questioned the necessity of a $4,000 custom dessert wall, Chloe's patience finally snapped. "You're being negative again, Emma. We need bridesmaids who support our vision, not criticize it." The word hit me like a physical blow. "Bridesmaids?" I blinked, the gilded reception hall swimming before me. "You're kicking me out of the wedding party?" Chloe's expression was one of cool, final pity. "Let's just say it'll be less stressful for everyone if you attend as a guest." And just like that, with a single sentence, I was demoted from architect to spectator of the very event I had built from the ground up. The silence in my car was a sanctuary. I didn't drive away immediately. I sat in the driver's seat, the engine purring softly, and watched the scene unfold through the venue's large windows. It was like observing a play I had just rewritten in its final act. The music had died first, leaving a sudden awkward void. Then I saw the confused guests part as the catering staff, efficient and professional, began dismantling the buffet. Platters of salmon and prime rib, which had been the subject of so many tedious tastings, were unceremoniously covered and wheeled away. The towering 5-tiered wedding cake, a monstrosity of fondant and sugar flowers that Chloe had insisted upon, was carefully boxed up and carried out the service entrance. A few minutes later, the floral team arrived, their arms soon full of the ivory roses and peonies from the centerpieces. The room was being systematically stripped of its beauty, layer by layer, just as my role in the family had been. My phone lit up like a fireworks display. It buzzed and danced on the passenger seat, a frantic chorus of anger and panic. I let it. When Daniel's name appeared for the 12th time, I finally answered, putting it on speaker. "Emma, what the hell is happening?" His voice was a ragged scream, barely audible over the din of confused shouts in the background. "They're taking the food. They're taking the flowers. The DJ just left." "I told you to leave," I said, my voice unnervingly calm. "So I did, and I'm taking my property with me. Every bite, every petal, every note." Chloe's shriek pierced through the line as she wrestled the phone from him. "You're a monster! You're humiliating us! This is our wedding!" "No," I corrected her coolly. "It was my production. You were just the ungrateful talent. Consider the repossession your final invoice from me." I ended the call and blocked both their numbers. The final touch was an email I'd drafted days ago, sent to the venue manager officially canceling the event and authorizing the full return of the security deposit to my account. Then I put the car in drive. The fallout was swift and brutal. The text messages from my parents were a predictable blend of fury and guilt, but for the first time, their words felt like water on stone. They held no power over me. Daniel didn't call for weeks. When he finally did, his voice was hollow. "Chloe's family is talking about lawsuits." "Let them," I replied. "The discovery process will be very enlightening for a judge. They'll get to see every transfer, every contract, and hear testimony from every vendor about who was really in charge. I have all the documents, Daniel. I've kept every single one." The silence on his end was confirmation of his defeat. Their marriage, built on a foundation of my money and their entitlement, crumbled within a year under the weight of the reality I had forced upon them. As for me, I finally learned to invest in myself. I took a solo trip to Italy, learned to make pasta from a nonna in Bologna, and rediscovered the sound of my own laughter, uninterrupted by demands for it. The family members who still dared to call with their hands out were met with a new, simple mantra. I don't fund emergencies anymore. I recommend a bank. I don't regret it. It wasn't an act of spite. It was a long overdue reclamation. People who see you as a resource should never be shocked when you finally revoke their access. And the moment someone tells you, "I need you to leave now," sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk out and take your entire world with you.